Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Walton. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Thursday, September 29th, 2016. That doesn't mean anything in particular. I actually had to clear my throat and probably still do. It's getting to be fall. You can tell that's happening as Pepe the Frog takes up residency in my throat. It's that much more bitter than the usual frog in my throat. Well, you know, I tried turning up the heat, and apparently the frog just doesn't get the hint and wants to stay there. So, well, all right. We can accommodate that. We can accommodate all of you. What would you like to talk about today? Donald Trump. Of course, I know. A lot of you want to get away from it, but he is still running for president. There's nothing we can do about that. And he continues, of course, to believe that there's no such thing as bad publicity. Also, no such thing as losing the debate. That's, I guess, another one. Apparently, he has been on a rampage yelling at aides who dare to say that maybe they didn't win the debate. But more and more of them are leaking to the press that that's exactly what happened, and that they're having great difficulty getting him to prepare for the next one. And I guess that works, right? I mean, if he truly, or whatever, I don't know whether he truly believes he won the debate or whether that's just part of his thing. I mean, and it's not just narcissistic shtick necessarily. I mean, I guess isn't our entire American business society to blame? And if our entire American business society is to blame, then isn't America itself to blame? Well, you can do what you want to us, but I am not going to steal any more of that speech from Animal House. Instead, I'll just point out, I guess that's a little bit another knock on MBA culture, which is also unfair. But it reminds me that, of course, these guys that we have running our businesses of all kinds, even if they're running them into the ground, of course, it's the hottest thing on the planet to insist that the power of positive thinking is going to make a difference in your business, and that highly effective managers never blah 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 this and that, and don't focus on the negative. So I guess I don't know whether it's Donald Trump's particular narcissism or whether it's just business management training, or some of both. I assume that there's a mix. The people who write books, either 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, or people who consider themselves to be highly effective, or have good enough PR to make the claim that they're highly effective and therefore write vanity books. Donald Trump write 5 books or whatever with his various ghostwriters. What else is he going to fill it with? Look, I know that you can sell books that say that if you just have positive thinking, you can become a success. So we'll write some of those things. I have positive thinking, and if you've managed to do what he's done, either if you're a believer in him, surround himself with billions of dollars, or if you're not a believer in what he's done, like me, surround himself with other people's billions of dollars and or freebies of various sorts that make it look. If you can leverage the trappings of fame and fortune for yourself, it's got to be a very stressful existence, I would think. But I don't know. Some people are just more comfortable with the grift than others. Plenty of things to check in on with this man floating around this morning. Let's see. People are pointing me to the LA Times, where the headline from Matt Pearce reads, "Employees at Trump's California golf course," we forgot there was one, "say he wanted to fire women who weren't pretty enough, because there's nothing wrong with this guy whatsoever." Of course, we're in like day 3 of Alicia Machado controversy. Donald Trump has his defenders, of course. Newt Gingrich is out today in The Hill, saying, I don't know, the headline quote here is, Gingrich defends Trump, "You're not supposed to gain 60 pounds. I guess when you're Miss Universe. You're not supposed to gain 60 pounds when you're Speaker of the House either, but I guess that's not as obvious a requirement. But you aren't supposed to, be constantly preying on the staff either. And I think he's, I mean, they've all got multiple wives, of course, but just a reminder that Newt's second and third wives were working for him on staff when he began cheating on his previous wives with them, and that's kind of gross. But I don't know. I guess it's all of a piece. Like I said, there's nothing gross about, for instance, a supposed real estate billionaire suddenly deciding that he wants to buy 3 or 4 beauty pageants and a modeling agency and have the girls hang out at a swimming pool and try on bikinis. That's not weird. The guy should be president. I mean, if it's Hugh Hefner, it's not an issue, right? But, all right. Well, anyway, I guess the latest, according to Josh Marshall, anyway, on the Alicia Machado thing, the new take is, hey, I was doing her a favor. I gave her a chance to stop being fat, and now she's thanking me by attacking me. Apparently, this fueled by a clip that he sent around just an hour ago. I guess that would have been yesterday. Trump went on O'Reilly to again trash Machado. I guess that would be last night. Now saying that he saved her job, gave her a shot at not being fat, and this is the thanks he gets. Yes, he really said that. You know, they wanted to fire her. The company itself wanted to fire her. I saved her job because I said that's going to... I did that with a number of young ladies. And there is another one out today saying I was a Miss Universe. I, too, was fat-shamed by Donald Trump. Sounds like get in line, I guess. So he thinks he's a big savior and protector of women, including the ones I guess he wanted to fire at the California golf course. We'll probably look into that later on, but I'm certain that there's more substantive news out there somewhere. If only I knew someone, say some wily New England type, maybe though with a New York edge to him, to collect that news and share it with us. I'll see what I can do about scrounging somebody up who fits that profile. And I'm sure Greg will be joining us shortly to do just that. I see lots of notes here on that front. And let's see, what other fun things, any other quick hits that we should mention or tease for the rest of the show? Oh, I got something for you. We have a new contributor. That's something that I'll share with you later on and introduce her and roll her first contribution to the show and encourage you all to do the same. I'm glad that somebody has picked up the challenge, so stay tuned for that one. In the meantime, Greg Dworkin, who's been contributing all along, is here to do so again this morning. Hey, Greg, how are you?
I'm fine. How is the quality of this call?
The quality so far is pretty good.
All right. Well, let's see about the content. So a lot going on today. Let me just get rid of our binging thing in the background as I turn off TweetDeck, which I don't know how to silence that sound. I can silence other sounds, but not that one.
I don't hear anything right now, so...
Well, that's good. Here's my abbreviated pundit roundup for this morning. Another day of anti-Semitism and incompetence from the Trump's campaign is the title. And, of course, we're going to do a little bit of polling. Good news for Hillary Clinton in the battleground polls this morning.
John McCain.
But before we get to that, I just wanted to mention a couple of things that we hopefully will get to. There's the big Newsweek story today from Kurt Eichenwald about a company controlled by Trump secretly conducting business in communist Cuba during Fidel Castro's presidency. Nobody in Florida cares about that, right? We have Nicholas Kristof in the New York Times pointing out that when you have a 7th grader running, you were going over some of the fat-shaming stuff. And it turns out that may actually have more impact on the election than anything except a view that Trump didn't pay his taxes, with everything else being excused in some way.
Okay.
But Kristof notes, if Trump's Achilles heel proves to be not his oafish policies, but rather his churlish manner, so be it. There are important policy reasons to reel at the thought of Trump in the White House, but voters perhaps flinch even more at his personal conduct. We already run into enough jerks in daily life. Why would we want one as our head of state? Middle school is the wrenching jungle state of life we all must struggle through. Why would we subject ourselves to a leader, that's in scare quotes, who is permanently in the 7th grade? And I read that and thought, Capone went up the river for tax evasion, even if he got away with murder. Who cares why you don't vote for him? If that's what motivates people and it's not policy, so be it.
I can never tell. You never know what's going to catch fire. And I mean, these are all the things that I thought, that's another terrible thing, and people should hate him for that, but I didn't know that that was going to light the fire. I figured the taxes would do it. That seems like
not just the taxes, but Fahrenholt's work. He notes yesterday evening, New York Attorney General inquiry into real Donald Trump's foundation is moving along. Investigators have asked Palm Beach for copies of the foundation checks used to settle Mar-a-Lago case.
Yeah, I love that one. That was one of my favorites, and I was harping on that. I'm so glad to see that one is. I wonder why that's of interest to the New York Attorney General. Why not?
Well, because the Florida Attorney General isn't going to deal with it.
That's true, but yeah, still, you just have to put up with that. Although
well, the Trump Foundation is a charity. For all I know, it's registered in New York, and therefore falls under the purview of the New York Attorney General, whose job it is to make sure that it's actually a charity.
Yeah, well, I mean, good luck trying to stop the New York Attorney General if he asks for it.
Mm. But that's my thought. After all, Trump does live in New York, and it's, a bit in his purview. Did you see the absolutely brilliant book review?
What?
By Michiko Kakutani on the new Hitler book.
The new Hitler book, yes. I did see that.
Did you see that?
I have seen it. I haven't read all the way through it, but I saw the little clip of it that I think Hunter used in the evening, or maybe it was Tim. I don't know who did the open thread yesterday.
Right. But it's just brilliant. Let me just read a little bit. It's a book about Hitler Ascent, 1889 to 1939, by Volker Ulrich, and it's a review. How did Adolf Hitler, described by one eminent magazine editor in 1930 as a half-insane rascal, pathetic dunderhead, nowhere fool, and a big mouth, rise to power in the land of Goethe and Beethoven? What persuaded millions of ordinary Germans to embrace him and his doctrine of hatred? How did this happen? She writes about, and different theories about Hitler's rise. But this one, he says he's going to write about it in terms of a politician who rose to power through demagoguery, showmanship, and nativist appeals to the masses. In a sense, he says in an introduction, Hitler will be normalized, although this will not make him seem more normal. If anything, he will emerge as even more horrific. And he points, the author, in the book review, points to things such as Hitler was often described as an egomaniac who only loved himself, a narcissist with a taste for self-dramatization and what Mr. Ulrich calls a characteristic fondness for superlatives. His manic speeches and penchant for taking all or nothing risks raised questions about his capacity for self-control, even his sanity. I don't know if this is reminding you of anybody. Hitler was known among colleagues for a bottomless mendacity that would later be magnified by a slick propaganda machine that used the latest technology to spread his message. A former finance minister wrote that Hitler was so thoroughly untruthful he could no longer recognize the difference between truth and lies. Also, an effective orator and actor, although he concealed his anti-Semitism beneath a mask of moderation. When trying to win the support of the socially liberal middle classes, he specialized in big theatrical rallies staged with spectacular elements borrowed from the circus. Here, Hitler adapted the content of his speeches to suit the taste of his lower middle-class nationalist, conservative, ethnic chauvinist, and anti-Semitic listeners. He peppered his speeches with coarse phrases and put-downs of hecklers, even as he fomented chaos by playing to crowds' fears and resentments and offering himself as a visionary leader who could restore law and order. Law and order. L-A-W-N-O-R-D-E-R. Law and order, just like in the Nixon days. Also, he presented himself in messianic terms, promising to lead Germany to a new era of national greatness.
I alone can do it.
He often harked back to a golden age for the country, the better to paint the present day in hues that were all the darker. His repertoire of topics was limited, and reading his speeches in retrospect, it seems amazing that he attracted larger audiences with repeated mantra-like phrases consisting largely of accusations, vows of revenge, and promises for the future. Of course, his rise wasn't inevitable. There were numerous points at which his ascent might have been derailed. It would have been eminently possible to prevent his nomination. He benefited from a constellation of crises he was able to exploit cleverly and unscrupulously. In addition to economic woes and unemployment, there was an erosion of the political center and a growing resentment of the elites. Why not give the National Socialists a chance, a prominent banker said. They seem pretty gutsy to me.
What have you got to lose?
What do you got to lose? Hitler, it became obvious, could not be tamed. He needed only 5 months to consolidate absolute power. Hitler had a dark Darwinian view of the world, and he would not only become a mouthpiece of the cultural pessimism growing in right-wing circles, But he also was turning away from reason and the fundamental principles of a civil society, namely liberty, equality, education, optimism, and a belief in progress. And the fun thing is that's pretty much the conclusion of it, and she doesn't even mention Donald Trump's name. It is a magnificent, giant subtweet.
Well, that's what it is one huge subtweet. That's pretty cool. I will point out, although Hitler was not directly responsible for it, the whole thing does end in a giant wall being built in Germany.
Yeah, pretty much. Anyway, so that was pretty good. Conservative Amanda Carpenter notes, the fact Trump seems to welcome a debate whether a Miss Universe was a fat housekeeper or not tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah. I guess that's, by the way, I mean, so far, I mean, there's been plenty of controversy about the whole thing, but I would like to see just as much, and I assume in, in Hispanic and Latino circles, there's a little bit more,
a lot more
concentration on.
They are concentrating on it.
Housekeeping
like you wouldn't believe.
Okay.
Like bigly, you know?
Well, I hope so, because that's the most ridiculous. I would love to see somebody from one of the Spanish language outlets get a question in on him. Not that he would permit it, but just say, yeah, I understood and thought it was a deplorable thing to do, the reference to Miss Piggy. My question is, what's the joke on the Miss Housekeeping thing? Why is she Miss Housekeeping?
Latina.
I was just wondering.
You hire Latinas to do your housekeeping.
I guess so. And, I mean, for a guy, by the way, who owns a chain of hotels, dumping on the housekeepers, maybe not the smartest thing to do, but it's get in line, I guess. But
well, yeah, probably not the first dumb thing he did this morning upon waking up.
Right.
So then we have, of course, we talked a little bit yesterday about Time Magazine's article about the Anti-Defamation League declaring Pepe the Frog a hate symbol. But then, to up the ante, don't forget Steve Bannon runs Breitbart, and Breitbart had this full anti-Semitic headline, Washington Post and Applebaum embarks on Kremlin-style disinformation offensive versus the anti-globalist right.
Kremlin-style, is that bad now?
And then the beginning of the article, Hell hath no fury, like a Polish Jewish American elitist scorned.
That sounds good. This is fine.
It just gets better. So, this is the Trump campaign. And how is it going? Well, he lost the debate. That seems to be eminently clear. There's like 7 polls out. Literally. Count them. 7 polls. And I'm not talking about the so-called online polls where people from Russia can go in and debate, go in and vote 100 times. I'm talking about scientific polls that show that Trump lost the debate. And how do we know? Forget about the polls. As first read NBC News notes, who lost the debate? The candidate who's lashing out. Forget the polls. Forget the pundit proclamations. Want to know who won Monday night's presidential debate? Look no further than the reaction from Team Trump, now lashing out at the Clintons, rekindling the controversy with former Miss Universe Alicia Machado, just like he did with the Khan family, and reeling internally. There's Donald Trump's hitting Hillary Clinton for nearly collapsing during a bout with pneumonia. Day off, day off, day off. Trump said in Iowa yesterday after, by the way, she had already hit him for, I was preparing for being president. What were you doing? All those days off, she can't even make it to her car. Isn't she tough? These are the Trump campaign officials and surrogates quietly shouting about the Clinton sex scandals. Is Trump once again unable to resist talking about Machado and her weight? And it's a beauty contest, he said, say what you want, Bill, to Bill O'Reilly. They know what they're getting into. It's a beauty contest. And there's dissent in Trump world with one source close to the campaign telling Katie Tur that the debate was a disaster, that's the quote, with internal dissatisfaction at campaign leadership. And they described the campaign as spinning out of control. It's the media. They have to add, but there's still time to pull out of it. No, there's not. He doesn't want to listen, and there's only like 40 some odd days left.
Yeah.
So there isn't time, and we'll get back to that in a second. But, the Trump campaign is in free fall again. This is exactly what happened after the Khan debacle. It couldn't happen at a worse time. I said on Monday that it's going to take a few days for it to really sink in just how bad that debate result was. Actually, I said it on Tuesday because Monday night was the debate. But it's true. Every day it's worse for him. And now it's set in concrete that he lost, and he knows it, and that is bothering him. So let's give you some examples. Here is Ipsos Reuters. That's Armando's favorite poll because, it's so all over the place. You can't really make anything out of it. But, of course, one of my favorite questions that I love to ask in these polls, regardless of the candidate you're supporting for president, who do you think will win the election?
Right.
Before the debate, the Reuters Ipsos people said, I think likely voters say 42-38 Clinton will win. And here's some interesting numbers within that. The Democrats, 82% thought she would be winning before the debate.
Mm-hmm.
Republicans, 76% picked Trump.
Pick Trump.
6% thought Clinton would win. And 76% of Republicans. And if you're looking at independents, more evenly divided. 20% Clinton, 27% Trump, 18% said Gary Johnson, indicating that they didn't understand the question or they really are low information voters. But this is before the debates. So after the debates, they had a special 2-day after the debate poll in which Clinton's up for. Likely voters, post-debate, likely voters say Hillary Clinton will win 48-30. It went from 4 to 18.
Okay.
Right? So they had a very good impression of Clinton, and they figured, you know what, she's probably going to win. Democrats didn't change that much. From 82 to 7 to 79 to 7. In other words, 3% of Democrats said, I don't know.
Really? All right, well, anything can happen in a poll, okay.
Right? So that's a little, noise within the margin of error. But look at the Republicans. Before the debate, Republicans, 6% Clinton, 76% Trump's going to win. After the debate, 21% of Republicans said Clinton and 55% Trump. They went from 76 to 55, thinking that Trump would win.
Okay.
Right? In other words, doubt is starting to seep in, even to Republicans.
They're wearing their doubt hats.
Yep.
Okay.
Doesn't that guy publish in the New York Times or something?
I do not
anyway,
know.
the don't know refused in the Republicans went from 0 to 21.
All right.
They really got demoralized, in other words. And this is the what's sometimes called the differential non-response. That is to say, if you get really depressed about how badly your candidate does, you stop answering polls.
Oh, huh.
That accounts for some of the Clinton drop-offs and then back on as the soft Clinton voters come and go. So it's a fascinating result. It just gives you a feel for what's going on in the real world. Here's another thing that gives you a feel for what's going on in the real world. Important new battleground polling out today from Public Policy Polling.
Okay.
Colorado, Florida, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Virginia. Which one you want to know?
North Carolina.
North Carolina in the two-way race, Clinton 49, Trump 45.
Okay.
North Carolina up by 4 points.
Nice.
Up by 2 in the four-way, by the way.
All right.
Colorado, Florida, Pennsylvania, or Virginia?
Virginia.
Virginia, Clinton 49, Trump 43. Up by 6 in the two-way, and same in the four-way.
Okay.
Johnson's starting to fade. Stein is like at 1%.
Yes. I'm not surprised by that.
Pennsylvania, Florida, Colorado.
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, Clinton 49, Trump 44. Up by 5 in the two-way, and up 6 in the four-way. Pennsylvania is not going to fall.
All right.
Pennsylvania remains a firewall. So is Virginia right now.
Okay.
Okay,
we got
Colorado, Florida.
Let's do Florida, Colorado.
Florida, Colorado. So Florida,
Colorado.
Clinton 48, Trump 45 in the two-way.
45, two-way. Okay.
And in the four-way, she's up by 2. We know Florida's going to be close, but in Florida, in the two-way, it's Clinton 45, Trump 43, Johnson 3, Stein 1. Those guys are not factors.
I'm glad of that.
Right? Florida's all about Clinton Trump. She's up by a couple of 3 points, and that's actually good news. And that may well be how it winds up. It's not going to be too much further than that. Armando sets an upper limit of 5. Might be right, but it's not going to be too much more than that. And it might be 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5 points. I mean, but it's going to be looking like a Clinton win unless something changes. Colorado, Clinton 51, Trump 44. Remember how they pulled out of Colorado and everybody said, oh, we got this poll from Colorado from Quinnipiac or whoever and says it's really close. They must be panicking. Well, they're not in their advertising. And they keep saying they think they already have that one. Yeah, but this poll. Yeah, but look at the campaign's actions. They're not advertising and they're not spending time in Colorado. Actually, Clinton's going to Iowa.
Okay.
Meaning they haven't given up on Iowa yet. So Clinton 51, Trump 44 in the two-way, and she's up by 6 in the four-way. These are all important states: Colorado, Florida, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Virginia. Pennsylvania has been assumed to be Clinton, still seems to be the case. Virginia and Colorado have been assumed to be Clinton, still seems to be the case. Florida and North Carolina are the swing states. She's up by a few points in both of those. It's good news.
Okay.
Want some more good news?
Yes.
She won't win it, but there's a win-through poll out today for South Carolina.
All right. South Carolina in the news, unfortunately. Yes.
Trump 42, Clinton 38.
Okay.
That's pretty close, really. And that's not the first poll that's come out of South Carolina showing it's a fairly close race. Again, if South Carolina is close, and if this appears to be, a reasonable poll, Georgia may well be closer than it looks, even though Georgia's still going to be in the Trump column. This whole set of polls that I'm reading it today suggests that the race is reverting back to where it was in August.
Okay. Well, I'm right.
And guess who was leading in August? She's up by 5 in the current Huffington Post pollster measure. And I think that's pretty interesting. And just to finish out polling, I had a really nice discussion this morning with the LA Times guy.
Oh?
About what's going on at the LA Times. And I said, your poll sucks because it doesn't really make any sense in terms of what the numbers are, in terms of who's leading and who's not leading. He said, I agree. But that's not the point. The point is that it's a tracking poll. In other words, it shows you change. Don't look at the absolute numbers. It's probably wrong. Look at it in terms of change.
Okay.
It's all right. So it's been trending Trump for about 10 days. But in the last couple of days, Clinton's picked up 2 points in the last 48 hours, according to him. It's hard to separate that out in the poll itself because it's a 7-day rolling average. But he's reporting Trump's support is staying the same and Clinton's has gained 2 points in the last 2 days. That might be something of a bounce. And, of course, we have to see what happens in the next few days. And I said to him, I get that. I appreciate what you're doing. And it's an experimental poll. Don't want to dump on you too much. But if you say watch trends, I'm looking at the younger voters and the African Americans and thinking it doesn't make any sense. But that's okay. That's cool. And so he was very polite, and it was a very nice conversation. And do not take the absolute value. You can't throw Trump plus 4 into the RCP average as they do. Armando's pointed this out many times, and I've said to them, and I'm saying to you, I've even said to Armando, I don't think anybody should be including the LA Times poll in their averages. It'll screw it up. But even with the LA Times poll being included, Clinton still has a lead. I expect it to grow. The other poll I expect out today, just because it is included in the RCP average, Regular Politics average, and affects the average, even though I don't pay too much attention to it, is Rasmussen poll. I think they release on Thursdays. So we'll see how that goes. And that's the polling news, so it's all pretty good for Clinton.
Okay.
Hey, remember when people were panicking and we weren't? I do.
I feel like I've always been panicking, but all right.
Well, it's part of our DNA.
Right. That's the reason.
It is appropriate to be concerned until the last vote is counted, and even maybe beyond then. But this is a reasonably stable race.
It certainly appears to be, even if the people in it aren't necessarily reasonably stable.
One of them isn't, that's for sure. So again, the big story, Donald Trump's company violated the U.S. embargo against Cuba. We'll see how that plays. There's another one here from STAT, which is the Boston Globe Health Group. How Trump was named grand benefactor for a Dana-Farber gala without donating a penny. Or the Fahrenheit style, get money from other people, send it through the foundation. Dana-Farber gets money, but it's not Trump's. Trump gets credit.
Is that in your list here? Let me, if it's not, send it along.
If it isn't, it's about to be. I think it is, but if it isn't, I'll just do it right at the bottom so you can find it easy. It's like the third one from the end, but let me just do it again.
I got it. Stat News. Got it.
How Trump was named grand benefactor.
How was he named grand benefactor?
Because money came to them. His foundation, which has not included any of his own money from 2008, gave the hospital $350,000 in 2010, or since 2010.
And now the big question will be...
Of course, the hospital paid Trump's private club $150,000 a year to host the gala.
That's true. Where did they do that? Did they do it in Mar-a-Lago?
I don't know where.
I wonder.
It just said private club. I'm not sure exactly where. But oh yeah, many hospitals make a point of hosting events in Palm Beach.
They do, in fact.
Where many wealthy spend the winter.
Yes, Palm Beach is the weirdest place. I also noted in searching through a lot of these things, you'll see that lots of the Palm Beach Police Foundation itself, when it makes donations, when it sends money out the door, it sends a lot of charity money back to, weirdly, New York, Westchester County, and
Cleveland Clinic
North
is going
Shore,
down there
Long
on a
Island.
host of fundraising because no birds give, as the article says.
Yep, and those are the places they fly in between, and it's weird.
Last year, Dana-Farber raised $1.6 million from the Mar-a-Lago event.
Okay.
And the hospital says its relationship with Trump is purely business.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Using or not using Mar-a-Lago is not a statement on the presidential election, said Susan Peresky, Dana-Farber's senior VP for development, and I'm sure the publicity is not going to help them very much.
Yeah, that'll change. I think so. He's losing a lot of business, and that was another of the big stories yesterday. Is the reports, the rumblings out of the campaign that his kids are getting upset because he's squandering
bad for business, right? I mean, the good businessman is bad for business. How do you square that circle?
Right, and the guy who's so mad, I'm not going to pay taxes because he'll just squander it, is squandering what little money he has left.
So here's one fun quote from the stat piece. Trump's foundation has drawn heightened scrutiny, and not everybody associated with Dana-Farber sees such clear distinction between business and politics. Oh, Jesus, said Dr. David Nathan, who served as president of Dana-Farber from 1995 to 2000 and now sits on the board of trustees. He burst into laughter when told by Stat about the relationship between the hospital and Trump. My first comment is no comment. But then he continued to comment.
That's the end of that. And there you go. That's the end of the Mar-a-Lago thing.
Right. Poor Dana-Farber probably made a mistake getting involved with him, but how are they supposed to know what was going to happen?
Yeah. Well, they didn't at the time, I'm sure. And so now they do, and they can change their minds. Ta-da.
So we'll see what happens, but that's a little bit here. It's just another way where Trump is like disrupting life as usual. Now, don't forget, a lot of people are voting for him because he is a disruptor. They don't like things like Dana-Farber getting cozy with guys like Donald Trump. And so, he has a certain appeal for those who want to disrupt things. I don't mind if Mar-a-Lago relationship with Dana-Farber is disrupted. That'd be a good thing.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that, and you're likely to see it happening.
Anyway, here's another disrupting kind of thing. Everybody knows that it's not unusual for police unions to endorse Republicans.
True, that's true.
Just like it's not unusual for very conservative newspapers to do it.
Right.
I guess the Detroit News is now going to endorse Gary Johnson, even though he can't name a world leader.
Aleppo.
But at least they're not doing Trump. And, of course, we know the Dallas Morning News and the Arizona paper and Manchester Union Leader. There's others. So getting back to the police unions, there's this story in Cleveland.com. Cleveland Police Union's looming Trump-Clinton endorsement vote causes fear among black officers. Very interesting story.
Yeah.
Cleveland's rank-and-file police unions plan to wade into perhaps one of the most controversial presidential elections in decades and vote this week to endorse a candidate who sparked some division in the ranks. Many officers predict members of the Cleveland Police Patrolmen's Association will vote to endorse Republican candidate Donald Trump, whose hardline stances on policing and immigration have sparked outrage and fear within black and Hispanic communities. A vote to endorse Trump would risk further eroding the relationship between police officers and minority communities at a time when the department's working to rebuild trust after a series of controversial deaths involving police, multiple officers, told Cleveland.com. You're dealing with a community that's predominantly African-American and Democratic. Lynn Hampton, president of the Black Shield union that represents black police officers, said you can't keep drawing lines in the sand and taking certain stances when the community is as frustrated as it is. So, they are going to do this at the next general meeting. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. The fact that it's even controversial is kind of not what you expected. Normally, they just go ahead and vote for the Republican. So it's just one of those things to keep an eye on.
I would say so. And it's the sort of thing that ordinarily conservatives rail against public employee unions for doing as well.
Right. Finally, here's a piece in Vox.com, because you always have to have Vox explain things to you.
Gotta have it.
But this is by John Della Volpe, who's a pollster who also works at the Harvard Institute of Politics and tracks millennials. So I thought it was kind of interesting commentary on millennials and where they are in the election. Of course, they take a lot of crap, and unfairly, I say, because they're no better or no worse than any other generation. They just procrastinate.
We'll
Of course,
see.
I say this as a father with millennial children.
Yeah, I'll wait and see.
Della Volpe and the Institute of Politics interviewed about 60 voters aged 18 to 29 from across the country to gauge their reactions to the high-profile debate. Like other post-debate focus group polls, it's a small sample that may not reflect larger post-debate polls. And by the way, it also depends where you are. I'm not sure that millennials in New York feel the same way as millennials in Mississippi, but that's another story. The early signs were still encouraging for Clinton. Her support among young voters has shriveled to just 40% in recent polling, down from 60% for Barack Obama in 2012 and 2008. But after watching the debate, young voters in this focus group came away thinking she was far more qualified to be president than Donald Trump. As an aside, it's rather disappointing you didn't know that before the debate, but good for you. Some who went into the debate saying they planned to vote for Libertarian candidate Gary Johnson, and notice nobody's voting for Stein. Don't even include her. It's like a three-way, not a four-way. Gary Johnson said afterwards they would now expect to vote for Clinton. This is the best opportunity she's had to reset her relationship with millennials, Della Volpe said, and all indications from our work and from the other polling I'm looking at this morning indicate she's accomplished that one step forward. With time winding down ahead of the election, the debate may have been Clinton's best chance to win over what many see as a natural base of support for the Democratic nominee. It looks like she took it.
Okay.
In other words, we know that they're not voting for Trump. The millennial vote isn't Hillary versus Trump. Della Volpe said it's Hillary versus Gary Johnson versus sitting on the couch. And Clinton beat both Johnson and the couch.
Well, that's good.
So, always good. She wasn't the caricature her foes in media had created of her, Della Volpe says, summarizing what his interview subjects told him. I think, in the eyes of millennials, she comported herself well in tone and substance. My sense was they are beginning to take a fresh look at her, and that's why Between Two Ferns actually really is important, by the way.
I guess so.
That's my interjection. Clinton beat Trump among young voters regarding who won the debate, who is better qualified, and even on Trump's signature issues like tackling crime. So 67 to 33 over tackling crime, 63 to 17 who won the debate. Did the night's debate change who you plan to vote for? 20% more likely Clinton, 10% more likely Trump, 5% more likely third party. You guys are probably Ron Paulites to begin with. And 65% said no change.
Okay.
But still, all you need are just a few voters here and there to really make a difference. So either 10% is a small number or 10% is huge. Depends whether it's going to sway the election or not.
I guess so. Sounds like any other cohort,
don't blame
really.
the millennials. I say the kids are right. I say you got to blame somebody, blame my brother-in-law. If you knew him, you'd know why.
Okay. It's not going to save you when the millennial
Well, it's not going to make any
comes.
difference to the end of the vote anyway. So, if you have to blame somebody,
Okay.
don't blame the millennials.
All right.
So that's my segment for today. What do you got?
I don't know. I got a new commentator who's joined the ranks here, so I'll debut. Well, I'll tell you. It's on Daily Kos you'll find her as Paula Reiter. That would be more descriptive and is not her real last name, but her actual real name is included here along with a pronunciation guide. Apanese. Paula Apanese has sent us a piece actually about NPR's real-time fact-checking during the debate.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, so I'm excited to roll that out.
Me too. I'll be Gregory Listener.
Okay. Yes. Right. And she's turned herself into Paula Talker, or a reader, I guess, at this point. And reader aloud, anyway. So I'm happy to have that. And then, of course, I think we'll have to turn to the big Cuba scoop, at least for a
is
while.
Armando available?
He's available to snipe at you.
But Armando knows that state better
Yeah.
than just about anybody else, and I think it's really important for his commentary on this.
Yeah. All right. Well, I would like to say, I know he sent me a
even if
note
he's
about the
wrong.
LA Times poll, so he's out there. I don't know whether he's free or not, but if so, we'll invite him into that.
That's not my problem. That's his problem.
All right. Well, it's up to you. All right. Well, we'll certainly be turning to that, and I've got 1.5 million things. I wanted to spend a little bit more time even on that the Hitler book.
That is just so good. As far as I don't know Florida anywhere near the way Armando does, but actually my first reactions to the polls, it sounds like a headache for Rubio.
Yeah. He's gonna be asked, and he doesn't like that kind of attention. If it's about Trump, he doesn't really want to.
Right. On top of everything else, Donald Trump just gave you another headache. How do you feel about that?
Great. It's wonderful.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much, Donald.
Yeah. Well, I got plenty more where all of that came from, and we'll see if we can't find our way back to something substantive. It could be anything at this point.
Well, there's a lot of stuff out there. So, again, there's going to be more polling. Remember, today's Thursday, so starting about today, if you were in the field Tuesday and Wednesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, then Thursday polling, Friday polling are going to start to reflect post-debate reactions from those you poll. So starting today, tomorrow, and over the weekend, polls you see are going to be most relevant in regard to what kind of effect did the debate have. And you have to remember these things percolate and they grow in the telling, and what seemed to be a pretty clear win for Clinton on Monday night by the time the debate was over, by Thursday today is now a disaster for Trump, causing his campaign to implode. I mean, it's just how these things work. That's what narrative is. And so go with the narrative and see what kind of effect that has on voters.
Okay.
Alrighty, take care.
Armando
and this is Greg
there.
Workman speaking with my friend David Waldman, Kagro in the morning. He's already laid out for you a lot of the stuff that's going to be on the show, and there's going to be a bunch more. You don't even know he's going to be on the show because that's the way live radio works, even if it's on the internet. Thanks so much for listening, whether it's download, podcast, however you do it. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll do it again.
Yes, so that you can do it again. Okay.
Well, you've got to give your voice a rest.
Yeah. Oh, right.
I'm claiming that's why I interrupt you and don't let you talk, is because I just want to, rest your voice, and I'm doing it for you.
I enjoy it this way, and I again encourage more listeners to contribute the way Paula did. You'll hear exactly what we've got coming up on that. It gives me a rest. I love it. Armando's already here, as a matter of fact.
Is he? Armando, you on?
Hold on a second. Let me add him in there. Hey, good morning, Armando. Are you there?
Hey, good morning, David.
Okay, hi. Greg's still here for a second.
Just for a minute, I want to hear what you have to say about Florida. I said in the beginning segment there that you knew more about the state than I did, which is true. You won't argue with that. But that it may turn out in the end to be a bigger headache for Rubio than Trump. What do you think?
That's exactly was my take, and I see this morning. I think this actually Rubio made his choice.
Now that I got Armando on, I'm sneaking out, so I'll listen later.
Okay.
Take care.
I think there's actually the story itself. To be honest with you, the hiding the stuff to the charitable donations, I think, is the one that would have more political impact. The embargo, for most voters, even Cuban voters, it just isn't that big a deal anymore. Now it's still on the books, just in case anybody wondered. Just because there's direct flights and things like that, that doesn't mean the embargo's not in. The Helms-Burton law of 1994. Is still on the books. Companies still can't invest in Cuba. You can't even do what Trump did in '98 now. And what Trump did, I think Greg probably described it to you, was funnel money through a consultant to go check out opportunities for golf courses. And when I had heard about some of this before, it was all, we were scouting golf course locations. I said, well, you can't do that either. So it was crazy. But people, this was during the Florida primary this came up, actually. And Rubio didn't hit him that hard on it at the time, which I found weird, but that's neither here nor there. Fast forward to today, you got Eichenwald's story, which describes exactly that Trump spent $70,000 on a consultant to go and look at business opportunities in Cuba, which was a violation of the embargo. You can't actually do that. And you still can't do that. Right. But I just didn't think it is going to have huge impact on its own. But what's happened this morning is Marco Rubio was asked to comment on this, and this is reporting by Mark Caputo, now a Politico for many years of the Miami Herald, a really good reporter, actually, though we fight all the time online. But he knows what he's doing, and he's got good connections with Rubio campaign. So they gave him this quote. Rubio said, quote, "These are very serious and troubling allegations." Hold on a second. "This article makes some very serious and troubling allegations. I will reserve judgment until we all know the facts and Donald has been given the opportunity to respond." Well, what does Rubio think Trump's going to say in response? He's going to deny it, but the documents are there, and Newsweek will put them on. It obviously happened. Eichenwald reports the treasurer of Trump's company at the time, a guy named Burke, testifying in a different case. Boy, Trump's always in a lawsuit, isn't he?
Yes.
But he was testifying in a case, and he said that bill from the consultant was paid in full. Well, then if that's true, then Trump violated the embargo.
Okay.
Now, just to be clear, it isn't that unusual that the embargo was being violated by these companies in just this way. I mean, the embargo itself on these little forays just isn't very rigorous. It has its symbolism for that. Now it does basically. You really can't invest there. You can make a trip and see, and wait for the next. In 20 years, there'll be great opportunities, and give yourself a little vacation in Cuba, and buy some cigars and Cuban rum and come back home. I mean, I think that's mostly an excuse for a vacation because it's hard for me to see the real point of these consulting deals. But it happened. So I just don't think on its own it would have been anything. But because Rubio's in a fairly tough, relatively close Senate race, and the fact that he felt necessary to comment immediately on this. Now, Rubio, of course, was very critical of Obama's decisions on it. And again, I didn't see that as a big presidential issue. I just don't think that many people care, even in Florida. But if for whatever reason Rubio feels obligated to make a big deal out of this, then what you have here is Rubio and Trump fighting in Florida. And it'll be interesting to see if Trump feels a need to, how he does, to respond to Rubio on this.
Yeah.
But, if they start fighting there, that's going to be good for, frankly, both Clinton and Patrick Murphy, the Democratic candidate. And Rubio's in a tough spot. He's been very outspoken about these things, as has, of course, all of the Cuban-American delegation, Rose Leitinen and Diaz-Balart and all these people. Well, I guess Diaz-Balart's not there anymore, so it's Curbelo. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out if this fight continues. It's clearly going to, just because it always is, it becomes a story that's covered a lot in Florida. So it's certainly going to be something to watch. Ironically, a couple of days ago, I believe Trump was in Little Havana. I have not seen copies of his remarks, but I would be shocked if he did not blast Obama on the Cuba issue. So it'll be, I think I'll have to go look that up and see what he said just 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And see how Donald Trump of 2016 would, of course, criticize Donald Trump of 1998 on this. But in Florida, it'll be a story if Rubio makes it one. And at least this morning, it sounds like he's not averse to making one or feels obligated to making one for whatever political selfish interest he has. So it could be bigger than that, not so much because of the substance of the story, because, again, I just don't think it's going to play that big, and that, I guess every little bit helps. If he loses some Cuban Americans, some older Cuban Americans, that's obviously votes that helps Clinton. But whether it becomes a public fight between Rubio and Trump, whatever the issue is, I think the more interesting political fallout, because and both would stand to lose. Interestingly enough, I think it could hurt Rubio in northern Florida, where they don't care about the Cuban embargo, but they love their Trump and their racist Trump platitudes and statements. I think you might have known I was in Florida last week, and the brazen, as I said in a Twitter feed, there is no shy Trump voter that I see, at least not in Florida. The racists are out in force. They still, organize volunteer Trump or events like on street corners and intersections, where they have holding big signs and big chants about how Obama is an illegal alien.
Yes,
that still goes on.
Yeah, well, they enjoy it.
They enjoy it. I'm just saying, Trump did his little sentence, but they took it to mean He just had to say that. We all still know that Obama was born in Kenya, or wherever the heck they say he was born. Indonesia, I forget what country they say he's from, but whatever one they say he's from, it's not the United States. So there is that tension between the Rubio campaign and the Trump campaign, whereas if they're fighting on any issue, I think it really impacts both of them. And that's actually where I see this fallout coming out. And it's interesting because I could have seen Rubio sort of just laying low on it, because that's what he does on every other horrible issue that Trump has taken.
Yeah.
But this one, he felt he had to say something immediately. So I don't think this goes away so quickly. So it actually might be more impactful, not because of the substance of the statement, but because it's going to lead to a spat between Rubio and Trump. And that's a big story in Florida, and that will certainly impact both of them.
I would assume so. By the way, I do see, I saw Ana Navarro tweet on this a while back, and I did manage to find it. She says, as a reminder, just 2 days ago when Trump was in Little Havana and at Versailles restaurant, he was there, she says, doing the whole cafecito Viva Cuba Libre shtick.
Yep.
So, mouthing all the right words for the still conservative, older Cuban-American contingent, Republican Cuban-American contingent, and they're waking up to the story that he was smiling and shaking hands and violating the embargo.
Right. It's interesting that people were talking about what he said in 1998 or 9 when he was running for the Reform Party. I think the more interesting thing is, what did he say 2 days ago, as Ana Navarro was pointing out. I haven't seen the text of the remarks. I figured it was the usual spiel. So the usual spiel is, Viva Cuba Libre, and Obama's a communist, and that's why he lifted the restrictions on travel to Cuba, and that's why he's naming an ambassador to Cuba. So it's really going to be kind of interesting. Now, I think that the following days will tell the tale. I see someone just tweeted out, is the Miami Herald ignoring the story that real Donald Trump did business in Cuba? I don't know what that's supposed to mean. The Miami Herald put its paper to bed by the time the story broke, so they can't really reprint the newspaper for today.
Yes, they can.
Huh?
I don't know. I'm just
yeah, maybe they can. An extra edition, like in the old days,
right?
But I think tomorrow's Miami Herald will be very interesting to see.
Yes. And then online, you can probably tell right where you're complaining. You can just click over and see if there's a story.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I mean, they might be reporting it out. It's only, 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Believe you me, this story will be covered by the Miami Herald. They're not going to ignore it. It will be something they have. It's going to be the place. In fact, they don't like getting beat on any Miami-Cuba stories. So I guarantee you there's going to be a lot coming from the Miami Herald on this. In my opinion, I'd be very surprised if there wasn't. This is right in their wheelhouse, and I think they're really going to go after it. So that's maybe why Rubio tried to get out in front of it, because he knows that's how the story's covered. But we'll see. It's obviously a good piece of reporting again by Kurt Eichenwald. I don't know where he got the documents from. I don't know how he got them. That's obviously his sources and methods, and that's what reporters do, and he did a good job. I think one of the more ironic things about it, though, is the Trump company that did it was Trump Resorts and Casinos, right?
Yes.
Well, you know what happened to that company, right?
It's making a mint. It's one of many that went bankrupt, I would guess.
Yeah, it went bankrupt and is basically gifted to Carl Icahn. He made a deal probably with creditors to pay 50 cents on the dollar, and he took over the company. So it's now part of Icahn Industries, or whatever Icahn calls its holding company.
Huh. All right.
Yeah. So, Trump always talked about he's never went bankrupt. He ran a casino company into the ground.
Yes, which is not supposed to happen. Well, they're not supposed to run anything into the ground, but casinos supposed to be impossible to run into the ground.
It's hard to lose money when you're running a casino.
Even if you're not paying any of your suppliers and vendors. That's amazing. It's because he took all the cash.
I don't know what he did, but it's amazing that he bankrupted a casino, but he did.
Several.
He did. I mean, look, it's pretty amazing. And I always wonder,
yes,
what does Steve Wynn and what do what's his name, Sheldon Adelson, really think of him? I mean, behind closed doors. I mean, don't they really think what Bloomberg said about him at the convention?
I would imagine so, but they got to store him somewhere. So the White House is as good a place as any.
Store him like the portrait, right?
Right. Yes. I don't know if we discussed that one as much yesterday, but that was yesterday's Farenthold story, or maybe even the day before yesterday, that they found that painting. But again, this lunatic advisor he's got, Boris Epstein.
Yes. Oh my God, that guy's a lunatic.
He really is. I wonder. I just cannot figure out where he came from, but he just does not.
Russia.
Stop. Yeah,
he did actually come
true.
from Russia.
It's true,
but no, I mean he came a long time.
It's
ago,
amazing,
20 years
and
ago or something.
You can practically see in the interactions that he has with Farenthold and others. You can practically see him, thumbing through textbooks and case books, and then rushing back to the computer as though he already knew this and he was just out and about conducting his day. Oh, by the way, you probably don't know about this 1942 case, but everyone, in my line of work, which is not tax or even business law as I understand it, but certainly not tax and nonprofit law. But he keeps finding these crazy one-time, very narrow exceptions to various rules governing nonprofits and charitable foundations, and trying to squeeze this situation into that. So this is where he came up with the idea that the reason it's okay for Donald Trump to take charitable funds and spend them on a portrait of himself and hang it in one of his businesses, and it doesn't count as inuring to his benefit, is the foundation bought it, but they want it, and they have every intention of using it for charitable purposes. What purposes they are, no one knows, and technically you don't have to have discovered them yet. You just have to have some inkling that that's what you want to do with it, I guess. And the reason it's hanging in one of his private clubs is they're storing it for the foundation. Maybe free of charge, maybe not. That would be interesting if they were charging them monthly for the storage. It's not because we think it's necessary. It's just to bolster the case. But yeah, so that's the thing. We're storing this portrait for the foundation, which can think of no charitable use for it just yet. But surely someday someone will want to buy it for charity. And in the meantime, it just happens to be hanging in a private club named after Donald J. Trump and owned by Donald J. Trump, but not at all because he wants people to see it, but because there's just nowhere to store this thing other than on display in the bar.
You know what's interesting about it? I bet you the Trump Foundation is charged a storage fee by the club.
They will be
for
now.
The story.
Now they've discovered that will get them out from underneath self-dealing.
That actually makes it worse, but that's pretty funny. By the way, it's Epstein, which it's Epstein, Apshteyn, which is an interesting spelling. I assume it's just a derivative of what we think of as Epstein.
Yeah.
He came from Russia in 1993.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, he's an immigrant.
Oh no! Send him back. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm all for immigration, but if you're anti-immigration, what do we need? He's a lawyer.
Oh, come on. Yeah, he's married to. This is his second immigrant wife. It's a Gimmitarian situation over there.
Yeah, I mean, but I just said he's a lawyer because we don't have enough lawyers in the United States.
Oh yeah, right. That's true. It's HB2 lawyer.
He's an HB2 lawyer.
We got to bring him in. We don't have enough insane, contrarian Russian lawyers.
But when you ever see the guy, he won't let anybody else speak two sentences before he interrupts them.
It certainly he strikes me as that kind of guy.
No,
in
and
writing.
the best is when he's talking, when he's on hardball, because, Tweety interrupts everybody all the time. So these guys interrupting each other the whole time is the funniest thing.
I wonder I haven't seen him, but there's certainly an element of what he says that reminds me of the Martin Short character, that lawyer who's on like the fake 60 Minutes sketch.
Yeah.
I'm not being defensive. You're being defensive.
Exactly. What are you talking about?
Says who?
Mr. Trump won.
Yeah.
Mr. Trump, what about the... He is something else.
Amazing. So he's finding these great exceptions.
You know what the funny thing is? I think that they had first rolled out Michael Cohen. I don't know if you remember him.
I do.
Says Who guy?
Says Who guy, yeah.
To play this role that Epstein, by the way, Epstein's much better than Cohen. I mean, Cohen's just awful and a buffoon. And Epstein, just by running roughshod over people, at least, basically ruins every segment, so it can't be as anti-Trump as it is when it's Cohen, who we all just sort of laugh at. So I say that's an upgrade for Trump, having the guy who just interrupts everybody.
Yes. Well, by the way, another entry in the Gimmitarian ledger. What did Trump's deplorable forces think of all of his defense work being done by Michael Cohen and Boris Epstein? I don't know.
I don't know. It's really something.
Well, we keep Jews on staff for these things.
That's the other thing.
Then we kill them at the end.
I mean, Kellyanne Conway is called the campaign manager, but she's not really managing this campaign. She's sort of the communications director, I think, really.
Yes, that would be the polite way of saying spokesmodel. Sure.
Well, I know they trot her out, and he listens to her some of the time, I'm sure, like every other advisor. But she's not managing the campaign. She doesn't make the decisions of where he is and where they go and all these things, does she?
She's not even really authorized to answer really tough questions. She keeps saying, I can't answer that. Talk to Mr. Trump.
Yeah, I know. I love that dodge. So why are you on TV? Okay, all right. So that's the end of this. Please stop asking us to put you on if you can't talk for it.
Never happened.
I always wonder about that with these news organizations. Like, think about they put Trump's rallies on, and you would have said it's for ratings or whatnot. But I actually do think that there is a exhaustion. I don't really, and they're playing them less. But they're just, people are bored with it, I think, a little bit, don't you think? I mean, hasn't it all played out? And part of it is the teleprompter, because now we know he's going to keep it mostly within the lines, and it's a bore. It's all the same nonsense over and over again.
Yeah, you have to rely on his Twitter feed to get the fun stuff now.
I think so. True. I think that's right, and I think that makes it because what? Yeah, I remember. You ever remember the Howard Stern movie Private Parts?
Yeah, sure.
And there's this scene in there where they say when he was in Washington about how his ratings it was in New York. He was moving up in the ratings, and people say, "Well, how can it be? All these people hate him." Says, "Well, they want to hear what he says next."
Right. There was the stats from the ratings company was people love Howard Stern. They're listening to him, average listening time an hour every day. But get this, people who report that they hate Howard Stern listen to him 2 hours a day.
Exactly. And I think there was some factor in that, but at this point it's a bore.
Yeah.
With Trump. I would admit that I listened to Howard Stern in the past. I don't really listen to him now, not because I'm boycotting him or anything. I just don't have really much opportunity. But Trump, I turn on the TV at night to see what's up, and it's always the same thing, and he's on some thing with a teleprompter, and it's all the same lines. It's a bore.
Yeah, it is getting a little stale, but he does pepper things with off-the-cuff remarks occasionally, goes off teleprompter once in a while. There's the debates, and then, of course, the Twitter feed. And he's got plenty of surrogates who are worse than he is. So,
sir, I mean, he's gotten away with that. The guy, Baldessaro, has never been thrown off the campaign. They've never had to disavow him or say he's no longer on the campaign. Remember the lady in Iowa got thrown off. I don't know how Baldessaro doesn't get thrown off. Obviously, if Trump likes you, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah, you got a lot of leeway. She's a nobody, so.
Yeah, she was chairman of something or other. I'm sure it was just something, but Baldessaro's. I mean, he's a state representative in New Hampshire, but I mean, what he said is just beyond the pale. It's not just denounce him. It's throw him off and disavow him and say he never speaks for us again in a normal world. But
no,
obviously that world isn't this year's election.
Yeah. For people who are handpicked by Trump, it's almost impossible to get kicked out. For people who, fall into a role, Mr. Trump, we got to have somebody in this county. Well,
listen,
all right, who do you got? Oh, all right, this woman. All right.
All right, listen, I'll tell you one thing that I thought was funny. I caught the very end of Morning Joe, and they have Halpern on, as they always do. But even Halpern's getting to the point, or he's with the Bill infidelity story. Mm-hmm. And he says, so the point man on these infidelity stories is going to be Rudy Giuliani? He was like, what?
Right.
Which, it's funny for those who don't know. Giuliani had a very public affair while he was the mayor of New York. And basically humiliated his wife, Donna Hanover, at the time. Donna Hanover was a news anchor in New York for many years before Giuliani launched his political career. And, he said, and he goes on about how Clinton humiliated the office. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? Who are you to even say a word? But, he's a shameless fool at this point. And even Morning Joe's like, is this how he's going to end his public life? Like, in more sad sorrow than anger.
I guess
type
so,
thing.
But...
It's like, yes, this is exactly how he's going to. Then there was one funny tweet I saw yesterday about Rudy that the people in the Trump camp were like, "Hey, Rudy, this isn't about you. This is about Trump. So this isn't your campaign." But as I said, you guys are surprised that Rudy's trying to make it about himself. You guys are nuts. Of course, he's going to do that to you.
Yeah. Well. Giuliani is something of a clown at this point, but I guess he's just got nothing else left. And if he had if he was embarrassed by what he had done, then he wouldn't have run for president afterwards. So
right, no, exactly. And I think he's an awful person. Yeah. I think he was an awful mayor. I think he did a lot of damage. But I know everybody else still plays the 9/11 game with him, and it's like, he had a good day where he didn't act like a crazy fool. But that doesn't make up for the other 15 years in his public life where he was just horrific.
No.
I mean, I can tell you another day where he organized a police riot in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, that's what he did. He had an event, and he basically riled them up, and the police rioted. The property damage by the police was over $100,000 at this. The police.
Yeah. But you can't arrest the police. They don't do that.
Obviously they can riot because they're the police.
Right.
But Rudy Giuliani organized a police riot.
That sounds fair.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
It's terrible, but it's what happened. And of course, he won, and then we had to listen to all this, and then 9/11. I mean, think of this guy. He said, let's cancel the elections in 2001 because of 9/11. Yeah. I'll stay on as mayor. What are you even talking about? You can't. There's no mechanism for that.
But let's do it. Well, he frequently he goes off Constitution fairly frequently and makes suggestions that there's no mechanism for. I can't recall what the latest suggestion was.
Yeah, there was one. I agree, and I can't remember what it was. But by the way, I'm sorry
just do this
to go on and on about Giuliani, but I despise that man. So
I think a lot of people
whenever I think of him, I go on and on about how horrible he is. The other piece of news you probably heard about, which is close to home for me and for you, in the sense that you grew up in New Jersey, is this terrible train wreck in Hoboken.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking, because I saw his face go by on Twitter. Bob Menendez, what a day for him. He starts off with the Cuba story and probably taking a bunch of phone calls on that. And then, oh, my God. So he says he's hustling back to New Jersey immediately. Yeah, I don't know how this happens,
Me either.
But I guess a derailment, but a train
In the station, though.
Yeah, but it's being described as having crashed into the terminal. So the rails prevent that.
Oh my God! Look at
So
these
clearly
pictures. I mean, if you have your TV on, David.
No, I have just Twitter, but I see lots. I mean, it's smashed the roof
It's
in.
smashed everything.
Yeah, well, a train hit a building, which I
At
didn't
what
think
speed,
was possible. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, clearly something went way, way wrong, and all the nightmares that you might
God,
have standing
dead.
in a train station, looking at a train, especially ones that don't stop at the station and they go barreling through, and you wonder, wow, what would that be like? Or if you watch Silver Streak, for instance.
Right.
I mean, but that just happened, and it's
100 injured. Oh,
so
boy.
It's got to be. They keep describing it only as all I've been able to see is mass casualty event, which it would have to be because they smashed.
There's a lot of
into
people on
this-
these trains. It's rush hour.
and people are on the platforms waiting, and so.
Oh boy.
Well, we'll find out what that is, and but by about it's 10 now, so by 10:15, someone will be complaining that Obama hasn't yet said radical Islam about it. And,
Oh really? You think that someone's thinking this is terrorism?
no real people are, but I'm certain somebody by the end will say, Alex Jones will say, "Oh, sure, derailment in Hoboken. Do you know what the Muslim population is?" Blah blah blah. I'm sure they'll blame it on somebody. Meanwhile, by the way, down in South Carolina, where there was a school shooting yesterday and hardly anybody noticed, the local sheriff actually in public comments calmed everybody down. Don't worry about it. It's not terrorism. It's not terrorism related. Everyone involved was white. So everyone calm down. That was his explanation. We know it's not terrorism because it was all white people. You can say that in South Carolina. Even though, by the way, it's also not terrorism if the governor happens to shoot the kids.
Oh, my
You
God.
can all calm down. She's not white, but the point is she's the governor, so.
Oh boy, David, it's now 3 confirmed dead
Yeah.
in this crash.
I can
Wow.
imagine. Probably on the people on the train, I'm
Yeah.
sure. And then I guess at one end of the track. And then if the roof caves in, all bets are off. So, it'll be a major.
Operator
casualty
error
event.
is what the original conclusion is.
I guess that's the first thing you have to
What everyone
come to
said.
mind.
Oops, sorry.
That's
Let
all
me
right.
turn
Maybe we
this
should
off.
hear it, although it'll be a copyright violation if we do. So, but maybe we can find. Well, I'm sure there'll be updates throughout the day. Nothing really for us to do from this vantage point.
No, nothing. It's just it hits close to home for David and I. David, of course, is a New Jersey native, now living in Virginia. But I'm sure you were through that station hundreds of times.
Everybody
in your
who goes to, everybody who lives in Hoboken area, Hoboken, Jersey City, all of Hudson County who commute to New York will have been in that station or on those trains. So,
Absolutely.
everybody has to check in now if you've got, family or friends in the area.
Yeah, I go more through the Secaucus Junction now. 'Cause
Okay.
my office is in Midtown, but it's I used to go through Hoboken all the time back in the day, so it's
Eli
it's,
Manning
pretty amazing,
lives in
huh?
Hoboken. Eli Manning, although he wouldn't have any reason to be on the train going to New York,
Exactly.
but
Eli
it's a
Manning,
nice place.
not
in
that
Hoboken.
hour, but wow, that's some error though. I still trying to figure out the error. How fast could you have been coming in? I don't know, maybe even at 30 miles an hour it's too much, or 20 or 15. Maybe it really, a train with that much mass doesn't need that much speed to cause a huge amount of damage.
I guess.
I'm sorry
I
to
see
be
lots of.
fixating on this.
Well, it's. I just realized it's an actual train wreck, so you have to watch it.
Right.
So I guess they're right about that.
Again, I'm such a selfish person that since it semi affects me in
you
the
were
sense
there
that I've been
once.
through that
Yeah,
train
That's the
station.
way we all relate to
Yeah.
these things. Interesting. I note here some random Twitter chatter. Somebody saying the accident in Hoboken, DA D'Abitty, D'Abitty. Many of you probably already follow her on Twitter, as I do, just noting that this accident in Hoboken will end up costing more than would have the system that could have prevented it from happening. I guess those automatic braking systems,
yes,
etc.
Absolutely.
But, yeah.
And look, I mean, stories will come out. Now, Christie, of course, of Bridgegate fame, gets to come out and play governor.
Yes. Oh, that's true. It's huge for him.
Yeah, but of course, his inattention to the mass transit system. I mean, most famously with his refusal of the stimulus money for the second Hudson River tunnel. It's who else knows what he refused to spend. So we'll see how that turns out in the next few days as well.
We'll find out. All right.
But anyway, you said you have another guest coming up?
Not another guest, but a pre-recorded contribution from a listener. I'm always encouraging people to pick up the smartphones and record a interesting article and read it to us, comment on it, and send it along. And we got one. We got a new contributor here. Although I'm trying to think, did she tell? Yeah, she's in Akron, Ohio. Although it's not an Ohio specific story, it's a national news story. So you can do that too, whether you're in Akron or not. But yeah, we'll add that to the mix. Actually, about NPR's real-time online fact-checking during the debate, and fact-checking debates in general. An excellent subject, and timely as well.
All right, well, I look forward to listening to that presentation.
Okay,
and,
we're ready to roll it.
Anyway, I'll listen in and see what else comes up.
Okay, well, thanks for stopping by.
Have a good one.
You do the same, and thanks for your insight both on Florida and in New Jersey as well. Two very high concentrations of Cuban Americans, as a matter of fact. I know everybody forgets that, but Bob Menendez will remind you. Second largest population of Cuban Americans outside of Miami, and in fact, I think probably the second largest concentration of Cubans, period, is actually, I think, beats out Havana these days. Anyway, in case I'm wrong about that, let's skip off of it and move quickly to that next topic. Let me skim through. I don't know if we want to go word for word through all of the letter here, but let's certainly take a look at the introductory material from Paula. As I mentioned, you'll find her as a longtime, at least, reader and occasional writer on Daily Kos as Paula Writer, but and she expresses some dismay at the lack of creativity, perhaps, about the name. But guess what? We all have goofy handles there on Daily Kos. Anyway, she's just recently begun listening the last couple of months to the Kagro in the Morning Show. So thanks, welcome. Glad you could do it, and glad you picked up the challenge so quickly. And let's see, what else can we add to this? Akron, Ohio, native. Well, that I don't necessarily know, but living now, currently, in Akron, Ohio. And congratulations to you, and thank you, by the way, volunteering in Akron at the Clinton Kane campaign office for the last couple of weeks. Lots going on. And the article of choice here is from over at Pointer, pointer.org, for those of you searching around on the interwebs. NPR's real-time fact-checking drew millions of readers, an article by Benjamin Mullen. And, let's see, we'll get through the rest of the introductory material, and then we'll just let Paula read and comment on that. But once again, something any of you can do, and that I appreciate very much when you do things like that. It gives me a chance, one, to rest, and two, involve the listeners in ways that we can't do because we don't have the phones available for everyone, and just bringing things to our attention that make it through the Trump muddle. But of course, you're entitled to send me a Trump piece too. I'm okay with that. I always love listening to it, and I love hearing what everybody else is thinking about. Let's just roll this out. Where's my button? Here we go. Paula, you're on.
Good morning, David. After the town hall event that had Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, the one that was moderated by Matt Lauer, After that one took place, the question of whether moderators should be fact-checking candidates during debates was raging. My view is that moderators should call out egregious, well-known fallacies on the spot and give both candidates a chance to comment. But I also think that expecting any one journalist to know everything about everything is unrealistic. So I favor the idea of having something like a fact-checking team on the spot to alert the moderator or alert the viewing audience in some way or both. Now, I've been thinking this for a long time because we have the technology. Figuring out how to best use the technology, particularly how to blend it into a live debate, that would take some working out, but I think over time something like that's going to start happening. But meanwhile, remote fact-checking is the best thing that we have. And, of course, there's been outlets that do post-event fact-checks. They've been around for a long time. But during the Clinton-Trump debate that was just moderated by Lester Holt, NPR took their first shot at fact-checking in real time, and they had some positive results. And the article I had wanted to bring to your attention was posted at pointer.org on September 27, 2016. It's called NPR's Real-Time Fact-Checking Drew Millions of Readers, and it was written by Benjamin Mullen. And here is the actual article. As Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton were preparing to debate one another Monday night, NPR reporters and editors flexed their fingers and got to work. Over the next hour and a half, Clinton and Trump hurled accusations, policy positions, and one-liners at one another. More than once, Clinton asked viewers at home to consult with fact-checkers. Apparently, they did just that. As of this morning, at least 6 million people had flocked to a transcript of the debate that was fact-checked by 20 NPR journalists in real time. The transcript, which ran more than 40 pages, was an experiment in real-time fact-checking for NPR that was weeks in the making. It proved to be an overwhelming success for the public radio network, drawing 7.4 million page views and delivering NPR.org its biggest traffic day ever. The concept of live fact-checking the debates at NPR began germinating shortly after the network finished its coverage of the Republican and Democratic national conventions, said Amita Kelly, a digital editor and producer on NPR's Washington desk. They'd fact-checked speeches from Clinton and Trump, and those stories proved popular with NPR's audience. So when it came to the debates, staffers were sure fact-checking would be in the mix once again. But how could they provide on-the-spot critiques of the debate in real time? That's where David Eads came in. Eads, it's spelled E-A-D-S, news applications developer for NPR Visuals, worked on a team of designers and developers to meet the project's technical needs. On Tuesday, after weeks of preparation, Eads sent out a tweet explaining the team's handiwork. Now here's how it all worked. When the debate kicked off at 9 p.m., NPR had a transcription service providing a moment-by-moment transcript of each candidate's remarks in real time. Then, a snippet of code read that transcript and dumped it into Google Docs. From there, 20 NPR journalists on a variety of beats annotated the transcript, checking facts and adding context. Kelly approved the annotations, which were then fed onto a page on NPR.org by a separate piece of code that checked the transcript every 10 seconds. The resulting transcript was embeddable, and multiple NPR member stations, including WNYC, opted to use the fact check. The real strength of the project, Kelly said, was the collective brainpower of NPR's journalists. Reporters from national security and immigration beats brought different expertise to bear on the facts, forming a kind of hive mind that was more potent than any one reporter. It was a chance for them to convey the knowledge that they all have on their beats anyway, Kelly said. Real-time fact-checking has been around for some time. PolitiFact, a project of Poynter-owned Tampa Bay Times, annotated President Obama's 2015 State of the Union speech in real time using Genius. Other news organizations, including Argentina's Chequeado or Chequedo, I'm not sure I'm saying that properly, have also experimented with the form. In addition, several other news organizations, including the New York Times, the Washington Post, PolitiFact, and FactCheck.org, were also in full fact-checking swing Monday night. Traffic to the three biggest fact-checking projects in the United States had been way up this year, perhaps because of the glut of fact-challenge statements of late. Given the success of Monday's experiment, NPR will likely repeat the process with the remaining debates in the presidential election, Eads said. The fact check saw above average mobile usage and sky-high time on site, more than 9 minutes, which indicates that people opened the article page on their phones and used it as a second screen throughout the debate. The word-of-mouth response was also encouraging, he said. One of the things I saw on Facebook was people calling it political coverage for grown-ups. So my conclusion, the false equivalency, we report you decide approach to journalism that has, become the norm over the last several years has hopefully peaked with Donald Trump. There's been something of a wake-up call happening as key people in key places have come to realize that making truth and accuracy expendable leads to some very bad outcomes, and hopefully we'll be seeing more initiatives like this by NPR going forward.
Well, thanks very much, Paula. That's a great point, great article, good find. I didn't think I was even aware that NPR was doing that, and that's usually the sort of thing that would have gotten onto my radar somehow, but well, it has now, and I have you to thank for it. So NPR is going to be repeating this experiment, I guess, for the next two debates, and it's embeddable, so maybe that's, I don't know whether Daily Kos would be interested in having something like that somehow included in the live thread debate coverage or not, but it certainly has a home on NPR, and I guess they got everything they wanted out of it in terms of clicks and stickiness of the content, I suppose. So great find there, great business model for them if they can. I don't know how they monetize that, but I don't know how they monetize anything, so maybe that's not even their first concern. And I agree, that's probably the best and maybe the only way to do that kind of fact-checking. Lester Holt or any other single reporter, I can't imagine them being able to handle it even if they don't also have the responsibilities of actually managing the show, such as it is, and being on camera and all the additional pressure that comes with that. Even without any of that, one person isn't likely to be able to call everyone out, and it's not even really the optics of having one person doing all of that. Even I know how much we hate optics and everything, but it seems like it's just going to be inherently more acceptable if you're talking about a large team of experts from various disciplines on hand to do that. So the real question is technologically, how do you do it? And I guess they've got a great start on how that would work, and having an annotated transcript is probably the best way to integrate all of that and to integrate it in real time and to leave it as a lasting record. So fantastic job there. I'll definitely want to check that out and see what they do with the remaining debates. Thanks for reading that with us, commenting on it, sending it to us, bringing it to our attention. I appreciate it. Once again, easy enough, right? Your next assignment then is to tell others how easy it really was to do that and how simple it could be. And imagine if you could have your own segment on a radio show / podcast like this without so much as a formal commitment of a certain amount of time or any sort of regular production schedule, just as you felt like you had something to add, you could. Well, you can. I suppose at some point there'll be too many of them and will displace me entirely, but then at that point I guess we would say, why don't we just edit together all the user segments into its own show as well? Plus, of course, sprinkle them here and there inside of our show. And by the way, I know that Rosalind McGregor has also shared her segments with the folks at the after show. And so sometimes when I can't get to it, the after show can. And sometimes we just repeat it and make sure that it hits everybody twice. Why not show this stuff to as large an audience as possible? So in the distant future, which might be next week if everybody just decides to up and do just as Paula did, I guess that's something we can think about using to expand the Daily Coast Radio Programming Day. I guess I can't speak for everybody there. I certainly can't speak for the Netroots Radio guys either, but it seems like exactly the sort of thing I'd certainly love to see that. I'd love to be able to claim that as one of the results of this show and this whole Netroots Radio experiment, that we simply lay out a platform where people can participate in online communications in multimedia formats, in a multimedia format. I don't know how we even to construct that sentence, but you get the point. The idea, if you've ever wanted to have a radio show, but you only had 5 minutes every 2 weeks to contribute to it, well, you can do it, because we'll do the rest of the work. I say that very cheerfully as I enlist the rest of the Netroots Radio team in doing something like that. But really, seriously, we could certainly find a way to stitch together a clip show and do a little narration in between, perhaps to introduce everybody. But it would be great. It would be like having a blog. What a great idea that would be. Somebody should get to work on one of those. All right. Thanks again, Paula, and thanks again for that story. Let's dive into Pocket again, and or I guess just as rich a vein would be my Twitter feed. I always forget to check my own Twitter feed. Why would I, right? Like, I don't listen to my own show. I don't read my own Twitter feed either. But it's a good reminder. It's a good marker. Everything I don't actually put into Pocket that I found interesting during the day in between shows. And it's usually a good indicator of what you guys are talking about too. So let me just make sure we've got that available. Let's see. Do we want to go to the LA Times piece about the Trump golf courses? How long is that? I don't know if that's something to read for more than the nut paragraph here, if you will, that he wanted to fire people who weren't women who weren't attractive enough. Donald Trump wanted only the pretty ones, his employees said. Let's just dive right in here. After the Trump National Golf Course in Rancho Palos Verdes, they're making place names too long these days in California. Please eliminate 3. After Rancho Palos Verdes opened for play in 2005, its world-famous owner didn't stop by more than a few times a year to visit the course, hugging the coast of the Pacific. When Trump did visit, the club's managers went on alert. They scheduled the young, thin, pretty women on staff to work the clubhouse restaurant. Because when Trump saw less attractive women working at his club, according to court records, he wanted them fired. Nice guy. I had witnessed Donald Trump tell managers many times while he was visiting the club that restaurant hostesses were, quote, not pretty enough, unquote, and that they should be fired and replaced with more attractive women. Haley Strozier, who was director of catering at the club until 2008, said in a sworn declaration, which of course means somebody was suing somebody, probably ex-employees, suing Donald Trump for firing them for not being pretty enough. Initially, Trump gave this command almost every time he visited, Strozier said. Managers eventually changed employee schedules so that the most attractive women were scheduled to work when Mr. Trump was scheduled to be at the club, she said. A similar story is told by former Trump employees in court documents filed in 2012 in a broad labor relations lawsuit brought against one of Trump's development companies in Los Angeles County Superior Court. Why would that happen at a development company? I don't know. Because he just likes to surround himself with good-looking women and buy beauty pageants and modeling agencies, etc. I don't know. What else is there to say about this guy? The employees' declarations in support of the lawsuit, which have not been reported in detail until now, show the extent to which they believe Trump, now the Republican presidential nominee, pressured subordinates at one of his businesses, at least this one anyhow, to create and enforce a culture of beauty. Then it's okay now. It's a culture of beauty, where female employees' appearances were prized over their skills. Gee whiz. A Trump Organization attorney, in a statement to the Times, called the allegations meritless. Says who? In the 2009 court filing, the company said that any allegedly wrongful or discriminatory acts by its employees, if any occurred, would be in violation of company policy and were not authorized. Employees said in their declarations that the apparent preference for attractive women came from the top. What do you know? Donald Trump always wanted good-looking women working at the club, said Sue Kwiatkowski, a restaurant manager at the club until 2009, in a declaration. I know this because one time he took me aside and said, I want you to get some good-looking hostesses here. People like to see good-looking people when they come in. As a result, Kwiatkowski said, I and the other managers always tried to have our most attractive hostesses working when Mr. Trump was in town and going to be on the premises. And who knows, hostess, honey, if you play your cards right, you could get a ride back to New York on Trump Force One. And the plane, hi-yo, this guy, he just can't have lunch someplace. He's always got to be worried about whether, what's going on in his pants and what he sees around him. Okay, fine, whatever. So everybody had to scramble and get the good-looking ones. Trump has struggled to win the support of female voters as he seeks the nation's highest office. In the past, he's insulted women's appearances, sometimes calling them pigs or dogs. Trump's record with women got renewed attention after this week's presidential debate. Of course, there was the Machado story. Trump has previously defended himself by saying he has great respect for women. Sure, right, whatever. And will do far more for women than Clinton. Mm-hmm. He also has said that all are impressed with how nicely I have treated women. No one is, but he says all are. As a part of the lawsuit over a lack of meal and rest breaks at Trump's golf club, about 30 miles south of downtown Los Angeles, his largest real estate holding in Southern California, several employees said managers staffed Trump's clubhouse restaurant with attractive young women rather than more experienced employees in order to please Trump. The bulk of the lawsuit was settled in 2013 when golf course management, without admitting any wrongdoing, it's funny, remember when Trump said that during the debate as though that were like a redeeming quality. Oh, well, I didn't admit any wrongdoing. Well, that's actually something you need to talk about with a therapist, but I get what you're saying. No admission of wrongdoing. Yeah, you can work those deals out. Yes, absolutely. That doesn't mean you didn't do anything wrong. It just means that you don't admit it. Anyway, golf course management, without admitting any wrongdoing, agreed to pay $475,000 to employees. Remember the story that used to be, I don't settle because that just encourages more lawsuits against me. He's involved in something like 3,500 lawsuits, and he settles tons of them. I don't know what he's talking about. So $475,000 to employees who had complained about break policies, which isn't even the attractiveness policy. And employees claim that she was fired after complaining about the company's treatment of women was settled separately. Its terms remain confidential. And by the way, $475,000, did the golf course pay it or did the foundation pay it? And same thing for this separate settlement over the treatment of women. Just a question, just out there. A public relations firm working for the Trump campaign referred questions about the lawsuit to one of the attorneys who represented the Trump National Golf Club in the case. We do not engage in discrimination of any kind and have always complied with all wage laws, including by providing our employees with meal and rest breaks, said the attorney Jill Martin, Assistant General Counsel for the Trump Organization, even though we also pay people $475,000 because we're so compliant. We're so compliant, we comply beyond it. We give you both meal breaks and $475,000. Sure you do. The former employee's statements primarily described the club's work culture from the mid to late 2000s. The Times spoke at length to one of the ex-employees who described in detail the allegations about workplace culture. The person declined to be quoted by name, citing a fear of being sued. What do you know? In their sworn declarations, some employees described how Trump, during his stays in Southern California, made inappropriate and patronizing statements to women working for him. Nice ass, honey. That sort of thing. On one visit, Trump saw a young, attractive hostess working named Nicole and directed that she be brought to a place where he was meeting with a group of men, former Trump restaurant manager Charles West said in his declaration. If there's a bottle of chloroform in this, I'm leaving. After this woman had been presented to him, Mr. Trump said to his guests something like, "See, you don't have to go to Hollywood to find beautiful women." West said. He also turned to Nicole and asked her, "Do you like Jewish men?" Whoa, what? What does that even mean? I don't know. Are his guests Jewish? I guess, is that what he's trying to... It's not a good time to be asking that. Or for us to hear about him asking that. That's interesting. One of the few older people on the wait staff who served Trump, Maral Bolsagian, said she was uncomfortable when he visited, calling his behavior toward her inappropriate. Although I am a grown woman in my 40s, Mr. Trump regularly greeted me with expressions like, "How's my favorite girl?" Bolsagian said in a declaration. Later, after he learned, by asking me, that I was married, "Are you married, honey?" And after finding out that she was married, and happily so, he regularly asked, "Are you still happily married?" whenever he saw me. Trump also asked her to pose for photos with him, said Bolsagian, who added that she felt she had little recourse, given that Donald Trump is not only the head of the company, but also one of the most powerful, well-known people in the United States. Bolsagian said, in short, I consistently found Mr. Trump to be overly familiar and unprofessional. I guess you could Google her up and see if we get the idea here. I wonder if he's his usual type, so to speak. Let's see. The lawsuit focused on the course's high-pressure work culture as well. Employees said they were not allowed to take breaks required under California law. The statement, you want to give people breaks because you don't want anybody screwing up golf, right? Oh, I lost my concentration and I can't concentrate on doing the golf thing that I'm doing. I don't know. But still, breaks are breaks. Everybody deserves some. Okay. The statement about Trump's preference for young, attractive employees were filed in support of a separate claim for retaliation lodged after former restaurant host Lucy Messerschmidt, then 45, contended that she had been fired for complaining about age discrimination. But that'll show you. Oh, you think we discriminated based on age, do you? You're fired. Okay. Whatever. Good. I'm sure the attorneys were happy with that one. Jeffrey W. Cowan, I don't know, C-O-W-A-N, not H-E-N. The Santa Monica attorney who represented the employees in the lawsuit said the case targeted Trump's development company, and they're always named something else. Not always, but this is how adept he is at creating different entities to shuffle money around. VH Property Corp. I don't even know what that is, but who cares? Anyway, that's what I guess who the defendant in the case was. But the evidence certainly suggested that the club's work culture flowed from Trump, as he would have it no other way. Although Trump was mostly absent from the course he purchased in 2002, workers said his company maintained a rigorous work environment that often left workers exhausted. Employees said managers urged them to hurry through brief meal breaks, sometimes even expressing impatience with bathroom breaks. My manager insisted that because this was Trump's golf course, it had to be top-notch, one employee said in a declaration. He was concerned that if Trump observed employees eating or resting, Trump would not be pleased. Another employee said his manager, quote, seemed obsessed with the fact that this was Donald Trump's golf course, believing that Mr. Trump wouldn't like it if he saw employees sitting around because he would think the golf course was inefficient and overstaffed. A valet described a stretch where, quote, someone got fired every week. You don't need valets, by the way, at golf courses, but they have them. One busboy said in a declaration that he took up smoking so that he would have an excuse to go outside for a break. That's great. In response, Trump's company filed declarations from more than a dozen other employees who said they were regularly offered lunch breaks of at least 30 minutes for every 5-hour shift and were counseled by managers if they didn't take them. Lily Amini, general manager, said in a declaration that the company implemented a firm policy about such breaks in 2009. Employees said managers started instituting breaks after the class action lawsuit was filed. It's interesting, too, why I love the declaration. So we have terrific lunch breaks, the classiest, most unbelievable lunch breaks. In fact, I'm sick of the lunch breaks. They're like, please take another break. My head was spinning. These declarations that come out, whether it's his golf course and his lawyers or the campaign. What did they do yesterday? I guess after the rumor that the kids were unhappy with the campaign management because it was jeopardizing, basically ruining their inheritance, they put out a statement. This was in response to Katie Turr's reporting, and boy, do they hate Katie Turr. Anyway, she's a hero for this reporting. Anyway, she may be a horrible person otherwise, for all I know. Anyway, no evidence of that. But they put out this great statement. Campaign's response to the kids being unhappy about the adverse effects to the business. Katie passes this one along. And you just got to see this thing. The campaign statement reads, "They are happier than ever before." Are they unhappy? No, they are happier than ever before, as they should be, given the success in the polls and Monday's debate. There is no truth to this fabricated lie, or even the unfabricated. No truth to this lie. Thank you. Good statement. How does Hope Hicks do it? There is no truth to this fabricated lie. The business continues to be tremendously successful. Forbes knows nothing about Mr. Trump, his company, or his assets, which are among the best in the world. I just want you to know all of that. I mean, what a ridiculous statement. All of us are happy. We are astonishingly, excellently happy. It's like the doctor writes everything. I don't know. Or, well, really, it's like Trump writes everything, and everybody tries to write like Trump. That's what's actually going on. Anyway, these people are ridiculous. And we have lunch breaks coming out the wazoo. You get sick and tired of all the lunch breaks, basically. All right. Let's see. Where were we with this? So thanks to Lily Amini for telling us how fabulous the lunch breaks are. Female employees said they faced additional pressures. Strozier, the former catering director, said Vincent Stelio, a former Trump bodyguard, interesting, who had risen to become a Trump Organization vice president, all right, approached her in 2003 about an employee that Strozier thought was talented. Stelio wanted the employee fired because she was overweight. You like it? I can't believe that. Strozier said in her legal filing, Mr. Stelio told me to do this because Mr. Trump doesn't like fat people, and that he would not like seeing the employee when he was on the premises, wrote Strozier, who said she refused the request. Stelio died in 2010, by the way, not around to answer that allegation. I love how they find ways, a business reason. I mean, they may still be unlawful, these business reasons, but basically Trump's entire existence is, I like to go flying around to beautiful properties and looking at the bodies of beautiful women and chatting with them. And if I go to one of my properties and there are fat people there, I want them fired. But in order to make sure that the people there are not fat and are beautiful and attractive, I need to be able to look at all of their asses and maybe pinch them a little bit. But the point is, I'm not staring because I'm a lech and a pervert. I'm staring because business. And part of my business is I've got to have nice women, nice good-looking women with good bodies around. And I'm just trying to make sure that they're all up to the Trump standards. Turn around, honey. Okay, now let's check out the boobs. Good. Everything's fine. Okay, very good. Bring me a sandwich. President of the United States. A year later, Mike Vandergas, a golf pro who had been promoted to be Trump National's general manager, made a similar request. Fire the same overweight employee, Strozier said. Strozier, a hero here, keeping this employee on. Mr. Vandergas told me that he wanted me to do this because of the employee's appearance and the fact that Mr. Trump didn't like people that looked like her. Strozier wrote, like her. When Strozier protested, Vandergas returned a week later and announced he had a plan of hiding the employee whenever Mr. Trump was on the premises. Strozier wrote, "It's horrible to think like this." Although, I guess, I mean, here he says fire her, and they just refuse. And this guy here, he's the general manager of the property, but he won't do it either. What a chicken! So he won't fire her, but then on the other hand, I guess finally when it comes to it, well, I know Mr. Trump won't like it, so you do the dirty work of firing her. I'm not going to do it. You do it yourself. Oh, you know what? I find this harder than I thought. She's a real, I mean, at some level, this guy, it struck him, this is a real human being. I can't fire this person and put them out of work because Donald Trump doesn't like fat people. And I mean, as ridiculous as this plan is, and as discriminatory on its face as the plan itself is, I guess at some level, I mean, trying to find something redeeming about these people, that the guy is saying, well, I know, I got a plan. He's saving his own ass as much as anything else. Why is this fat person still here? I told you to fire her. Well, I don't want to get caught with that. So he contrives a way to hide her, but I guess at least she continues to draw a paycheck. I don't know. I don't know what to make of this, but Other than Donald Trump is disgusting. I think that's probably enough. All right, so he comes up with a plan to hide her. West, who worked as restaurant manager at the club until 2008. Who's West? Did we not name West already? Is that the employee? I'm not sure. Restaurant manager, anyway, at the club until 2008, wrote that Vandergoss ordered him to hire young, attractive women to be hostesses. West said that Vandergoss insisted that he would need to meet all such job applicants first to determine if they were sufficiently pretty. He's caught on very well, right? If you play your cards right, I got a job for you. Come see me. I think I have something for you. Vandergoss, who worked at the club until 2008, did not respond to requests for comment, though he defended Trump in a February interview with the Santa Clarita Gazette. He's not racist. He's not a bigot, said Vandergoss. You could have attractive women of any color, probably, right? Who called Trump an astute businessman, not an astute businessman, but an astute businessman, and a marketing genius. Employees said several women quit or were fired because they were perceived as unattractive. That's not fun, I'm sure. A server, John Marlowe, recalled seeing a coworker crying in 2007. The woman had wanted to be promoted to server. She told me she was upset because a manager had told her that she couldn't be a server because she had acne on her face. Marlowe said in a declaration, according to her, she was qualified for the job and wanted it, but couldn't get it solely because of her acne. The woman quit soon after, Marlowe wrote. Messerschmidt, the employee who said she was fired in retaliation for complaining about age discrimination, said in 2008 that one of her managers, Brian Walbers, I guess you should remember these names, changed her schedule to give her time off during one of Trump's visits because Trump likes to see fresh faces and young girls. This guy is so disgusting. Walbers did not respond to a request for comment. Gail Donor, who worked as a food server from 2007 to 2011, wrote that she was 60 and had often been frustrated by the inefficiencies of the restaurant's young, inexperienced hostesses, who were usually not competent, but were kept anyway. The hostesses were the youngest and prettiest, and they always got the best shifts, Donor wrote. Meanwhile, Donor, who has 20 years of experience working for wine vendors, was at the top of her game while working for Trump National. And she said managers slowly cut back her shifts until they stopped scheduling her at all, effectively firing her. It did not appear to me that this reduction in shifts was happening to any of the younger, more attractive female food servers, Donor said. She added, I chose not to fight to get my job back because by that point I was fed up with this toxic environment and the way I was treated. So, well, good on you for giving up on that situation, I guess, except... well, I hope you got part of the settlement. I don't know if that was clear from the reading. I've lost track, and I'm thinking more about the disgustingness of Donald Trump. Another pouty, doofus-faced photo illustrating the piece, of course. Man, that's it. He likes young girls. It does disturb me every once in a while when I think about that ridiculous one having bought all of those. Beauty pageants and then the modeling agency and stashing away illegally imported teenage girls from around the world in townhomes in the East Village and then using them for fake crap like appearances on The Apprentice. Oh, speaking of The Apprentice, we only have a minute or two for another throwaway piece of crap article. So we might as well fill it with exactly that kind of crap. You remember the free ring thing that Donald Jr. did? And there was brief mention at the time in the Post article that Donald had done the same thing. I thought that was an interesting addition to the tweets of yesterday that I was going on with. The I didn't pay taxes because you would have squandered it thing. Think about this as a complete picture for this guy, right? This is the reality of trickle down. He still clings to this trickle down thing, as all conservatives eventually do. That's all they can do. That's all they can think of to justify tax cuts for the rich. Well, it all trickles down. Well, of course, all the pictures that I showed you show no trickling whatsoever. It all stays with Trump, right? And then he tells you it makes me smart that I don't pay taxes. So, I mean, taxes are there in case enough, well, for a lot of reasons, but partially in case nothing trickles, right? If you're not going to let anything trickle, we'll trickle it right out of you. because we got to have money to work, and after all, it's a fair share, and the whole system is geared towards making it possible for you to attain and keep that wealth, and you owe us something for policing that and making sure it works. So he pays no taxes. That makes him smart. So money's not coming out that way. No trickling going on there. He doesn't make any charitable contributions. He makes other people do that, as we learned through Farenthold's reporting, right? He doesn't pay his contractors or vendors and preys on people in economic distress to make a killing. That's called business, by the way. So where does the trickling happen, right? It's not taxes. It's not as a lot of people say, well, I don't think I should be compelled to pay taxes. I should give voluntarily. That's the libertarian credo, right? Well, he doesn't do that either. So taxes aren't doing it for the community. Charitable donations aren't doing it for the community. Where does the money trickle down from? The argument usually is, the fallback argument is, the very wealthy people, even if they spend all their money on ridiculous extravagances like those in the photos I've been sharing with you, at least the people who make and sell those extravagances get some trickle down, right? Only we know also from the reporting that no, they don't. Trump famously does not pay his contractors, famously does not pay his suppliers, famously does not pay his vendors. Or if he does pay them, he pays them pennies on the dollar. There's no trickling with this guy. This is the most perfect crystalline example of the reality of trickle-down theory. This guy doesn't trickle anything to anybody, including his personal extravagances. As I told you, there was that free ring thing. Well, I got a little bit more detail in another piece here in the New York Post. Free ring circus. Zillionaire Trump deals to get wedding band gratis. Donald Trump knows the art of the deal, and he's proving it by getting this $1.5 million freebie wedding ring that he will present Melania at their upcoming nuptials. Both, by the way, the engagement ring and the wedding band, freebies from Graf Diamonds in exchange for product placement on the show, on The Apprentice. And of course, who models all the stuff that they were placing on The Apprentice? Why, it's all the models that he's illegally imported into the country and pays next to nothing and charges exorbitant rent for being held captive. Isn't that amazing? What a great vertical integration all of that is. By the way, they were talking in the wedding band, a 13-carat masterpiece ring, all of which goes to him for free in exchange for the November appearance of the jeweler's products on The Apprentice, a source close to Trump said the other day. Isn't that amazing? And Donald Jr. had nothing of the kind to offer, but instead, both of their fiancés and later wives would agree to model the goods and do promotional appearances for the jewelers that provided the pieces. Isn't that nice? No charity, no taxes, no trickling down, doesn't even pay for his own luxury items. What the F does this guy do in life? This is your parasite. This is your Mr. Maker. What happened to we are the 53%. They ought to be dragging this guy out of his house and tar and feather the guy. Into the ocean with you, Donald Trump. I'm finished. Next up, it's the after show. What do they have to share with you that I didn't get around to? Well, I'll tell you the best I can. Texas prisons ban books by Shakespeare, Langston Hughes, Gore Vidal, Flannery O'Connor, Sinclair Lewis, and Thomas More, but not Hitler and David Duke. What do you know? Well, we got to give the people what they want. And the people in prison, I guess they want Hitler and David Duke. Wonder why.
From Daily Kos Radio on networksradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
Let's see what I can cram in for the last half. They'll be reporting on a chilling attack on the free press. Conservative judges on an appellate court insist that journalists who report on specific government rules and regulations could render those rules and regulations illegal. And after withdrawing its plan to experiment on 225 wild horses rather than face multiple lawsuits, the Bureau of Land Management Advisory Board recommends killing them. I'm sorry I ran over, but you got to hear all about it. Stay tuned for the after show next.